Uh, Good morning, students. Good morning, everyone. So I welcome you all for this video on conducting an experiment on heat transfer coefficient. So let me just read out the topic. That is heat transfer through a pipe by forced convection. So basically, the aim of this experiment is to determine heat transfer coefficient in forced convection for flow through pipe. Okay, so basically this video, let me just give out the brief outline of this video. First, let us try to discuss about the theory part of the theory part that one should know before actually conducting the experiment. That is a little bit basics of forced convection as well as the boundary layer theory related to that. Next, I will try to give you the actual experimentation of the setup. So that is actual experimental setup. You will be able to. I will be able to explain you the. Actual experimental setup. Then I'm going to give you the tabular column. So before the experimental setup in the theory part itself, I will be explaining you about what are the observations that one should know and one should make, and what is the tabular column, everything. Then I'll be giving you about the experimental setup. Then I'll be talking you in the experimental setup itself. You will be able to understand the procedure by which you'll be able to understand it. Then again, I'll be able to explain you what is the calculation part. Okay, calculation of that. So calculation of basically H, that is heat transfer coefficient. So basically here you will be able to compare H experimental versus H theoretical. Okay, now let us try to jump in and try to understand the theory part of the convection heat transfer. So all of you are aware of this word convection, correct? So what do you mean by this word convection? Convection is a mode of heat transfer. All of you are aware of it since you have already studied this in your 6th semester, in your previous semester. So basically, convection is a mode of heat transfer. As you know, the three modes of heat transfer, that is conduction, convection and radiation. In that, convection is a type of heat transfer. It's a mode of heat transfer. Basically, how do we define a convection? Convection consists of two processes. One is advection, another one is diffusion. That means to say convection heat transfer is a combination of advection plus diffusion of molecules. So let me just give you an example. Suppose say you have a flat plate which is maintained at a wall temperature T wall, and a fluid is flowing over this hot plate, and the temperature, and it is flowing at a velocity u infinity meter per second and at the temperature T infinity. Now since let us consider that T wall is greater than T infinity. In such cases, you can just see that here the mode of heat transfer is convection. That means to say the molecules of the fluid which will be moving over the hot plate will be able to undergo these two processes, advection as well as diffusion, because so this will be the boundary layer you have studied. So some part of the fluid will be laminar, so the boundary layer associated with it is called as laminar boundary layer. As well as you might have understood already what do you mean by a boundary layer. A boundary layer, always when there is a solid and a fluid body interaction, a small layer just adjacent, just vicinity to the solid layer, there exists a gradient of velocity, and that small layer, because of the gradient of velocity, we can experience a shear stress. Because of shear stress, there is a drag force which is generated. You all have studied about the basics of the boundary layer and its implications on heat transfer coefficient and all. I don't want to much discuss about all those things. Basically, whenever there is a flow happening, there is a boundary layer phenomena that takes place, and basically convection heat transfer is a a process where the fluid molecules or the liquid molecules will be moving over a hot plate, or the vice versa can happen. Here, not only the information is going to be exchanged within the molecules, also the molecules will be moving from one point to the another point. Got it? So the information between the molecules also will be exchanging, and also information about along the distance of the flow also the information will be exchanging. So that is what is called as advection and diffusion. So convection is a process which consists of advection and diffusion process. So basically when we talk about convection process, there are two types of processes we will be focusing on. One is external flows and second one is internal flows. Now basically when you have external flows, what is the procedure of finding out the heat transfer? So basically convection heat transfer, our main agenda in most of the problems related to convective heat transfer is to find out H, so that we can find out what is the Q, what is the how much amount of Q that the fluid is taking away from the hot plate, or the vice versa. That means to say how much heat is being transferred from the hot fluid to the cold plate, so vice versa. So basically our whole motto is to find out the heat transfer coefficient, because we know that convective heat transfer Q is equal to what? H into A into delta T. So all your equations run around this. So what is Q? Q is the heat supplied, H is the heat transfer coefficient, A is the surface area. So please be careful about this area. It is not the cross sectional area, it is the area seen by the flow. Basically what is delta T? Delta T is the difference in temperature between the hot plate and the liquid, cold liquid. That means to say, let me just write it one more time. HA is into T wall minus T infinity. Got it? Where T infinity is the ambient temperature of the air. So as I told you, for external flows, you can consider here there is a flat plate. As I wrote earlier, there is this flow which is actually happening. So for forced convection, actually convection heat transfer can be again classified into two types. One is natural convection and forced convection. So forced convection is that type of convection where you need an external agency to initiate the flow, where natural convection, the flow happens on its own because of density variation, or because of temperature difference. There is a variation of density because of which the flow is going to happen, and which is going to take the heat from the hot surface. Now in terms of forced convection, if we consider, we can again classify it into external flows and internal flows. And when you consider external flow, you already have told T wall, this is T infinity, and it is moving at U infinity meter per second. When the flow happens, as you know, in forced convection, your Nu is a function of Reynolds number and Prandtl number. I hope all of you have known this. For forced convection, either it might be an external flow or internal flow. Nu is a function of Reynolds number and Prandtl number. So what is Reynolds number? Let me just try to put it. For external flows, it is U into X divided by kinematic viscosity, where U is the velocity of the flow, X is the length. So let me just write it here. This is your X equal to 0 and this is your X equal to L. That is the length of the flat plate. So as you can see here, as the flow starting initially, the flow will be laminar, and basically it undergoes transition, and then basically it becomes turbulent. So this is the boundary layer, whatever that I have written here. So here inside the boundary layer, so whatever that I have written, let me just make it with the red color one. So this is what the boundary layer thing is. So away from the boundary layer, the velocity will be equal to where U equal to U infinity, away from the boundary layer. Here the velocity will be varying, correct? Inside the boundary layer, it will be 0 at the wall, and maximum, that is equal to maximum, or U equal to 99.99% of U infinity at the boundary layer. So away from the boundary layer, U equal to U infinity. So this is what is. So basically part of the region will be laminar, this will be transition, and then this will be turbulent, because you can see the Reynolds number as the X increases along the length of the flat plate, Re also increases. So you can see it can be divided. So accordingly we will be calculating H in different zones. So based on whether the flow is laminar or turbulent, whether the flow is laminar or turbulent, your complete correlation is going to be varied. So if it is a laminar external flow, so first thing is you have to find out whether the flow is laminar flow or turbulent flow, and the second thing is whether the flow is internal flow or external flow. So first thing is, if you try to make it is a laminar external flows, you should first know that Nu is a function of Re and Pr. Then you have to find out whether the flow is laminar or turbulent. So basically, you know, Re is U into X into Nu. So what is Prandtl number? Prandtl number is nothing but mu Cp by K, or in it can also be written in some other forms, nu by alpha also you can write it. So basically you will be finding out like this in external flows. Now what is the procedure? First deciding factor is whether the flow is laminar or turbulent. First you have to find it out. Then after that you should try to find out Nu correlation. So also what is Nu? Nu is nothing but HL by K, which is equal to, you can just try to find it out, 0.032 or 0.032 into Re to the power of and Prandtl to the power of 1 by 3. You are going to get it like this for external flows. So like this, you know, there are different correlations for different zones. As I told you, you have a transition region, you have a laminar region, and you have a turbulent region. Every region has a different correlation. So like that, you have to find out Re and Pr, then substitute it here, and then find out what is H. By the way, for your information, K is the thermal conductivity of the fluid, not the solid wall. Okay. Now coming to the internal flows, whatever that the experiment which is connected to this particular video. So internal flows. So basically internal flow also you can write it like this. So basically internal flow, you can just see here, it will be going like this. Then it is going to be uniform, the boundary layer. Okay, here the flow will be boundary layer. You can just see here. So basically it will be like this. So like that it will be. Now up to certain distance here the flow will be developing. Up to flow it will be developing flow. After that it will be fully developed flow. Here also there will be different regions where both thermodynamically and hydrodynamically fully developed flow. Fully developed flow. Now initially both will be developing. In the mid region there will be thermally developing region, hydrodynamically fully developed region. So while calculating the Nusselt number in terms of internal flows, you can just find it out in what region we are finding it out. So according to the correlation will also be varied. Okay, now this is the flow happening. So when the flow goes like this, again as I told you, it is U infinity meter per second. Because of the resistance that is being offered by the wall onto the respective fluid, there creates a boundary layer. So whatever that red color thing I have written here, this is actually the boundary layer. So this is the kind of resistance. So you can see this is what the gradient, the velocity boundary layer I have written, velocity profile I can say. So it goes like this. Okay, here also you know you can write the arrow mark here. Okay, understood guys. Now the thing is, if we consider the flow to be fully developed, here also first thing is laminar or turbulent. Now how do you find out whether the flow is laminar or turbulent? Based on Reynolds number. So if the Reynolds number is greater than 2300, if the Reynolds number is first I'll write it here. So we can call it as a laminar if the Reynolds number is less than 2300. So it is turbulent if RED is greater than 2300. That means to say your Re is equal to U times D divided by nu. So in case of calculating the Reynolds number in internal flows, your X becomes D here. By the way, I forgot to give you the here for external flows. For external flows, your laminar region is between, that is Re should be less than 5 into 10 to the power of 5, where Re for turbulent it is greater than 5 into 10 to the power of 5 for, please see this is for external flows. Okay, understood guys? So for internal flows, the laminar region, if you want to tell the flow is laminar, then the Re should be less than 2300. If it is turbulent region, then Re is 2300. Now why I gave you this thing is, also your calculation of Nusselt number depends on what is the type of boundary condition that you are giving. If you are giving it as the constant heat flux boundary condition or constant temperature boundary condition. Now first let us try to consider if the flow is laminar for constant heat flux boundary condition, then Nu is equal to 4.36. It is fixed. Now you can see that lot of derivations are all there for this. So it is there already. Okay, understood? Then similarly for constant temperature boundary condition, your Nusselt number is 3.43. Understood? Now like that, if you have for turbulent flows, your Nusselt number, you have to use a correlation called as Dytus-Boelter equation, which is 0.023 Re to the power of 1 by 8 and Prandtl number to the power of 1 by 3. Are you able to understand guys? Prandtl number to the power of 1 by 3. So please try to check this. Yeah, almost it is correct. Yeah, it is for a turbulent flow, it is this one only. Now yeah, Prandtl number to the power of n will come. Sorry, I'll just try to make a correction here. Prandtl number to the power of n will come, where n is equal to 0.4 for heating of fluids. And n equal to 0.3 for cooling of fluids. Is it okay guys? So n equal to 0.023 to the power of Re to the power of sorry, it is not 1 by 8, it is 0.8. Please make a correction here. It is Re to the power of 0.8 Prandtl number to the power of n. N is equal to this. So basically Nu is what? Again here it is Hd by K, which is equal to Nu, which is equal to 0.023 Re to the power of 0.8 and Prandtl number to the power of n. So like this, we will be calculating if it is a turbulent flow and finding it out the heat transfer coefficient. So this is pretty much theory that you need to know how do you calculate. So basically this is a theoretical part, whatever that I explained. So coming to the experimental setup, let me just give you a brief overview of it. So what is happening is, you have a pipe like this. Okay, you have a pipe like this, where I will be explaining actual experimental setup. So you have a heater which is wounded on top of this. So you should understand that it is wounded on top of the pipe. Now here the flow is initiated. That means on the circumference of the pipe, the heat is the resistor coil has been wounded. So when you switch on the power, when you try to circulate the power, the flow will be flowing through the pipe. Now you can control the pipe. So you can control the flow, you can control the flow here. There is a pump and there is a throttle valve. Finally you can control the pump. Finally you can control the flow through the pump and through the throttle valve. So you can control the velocity. So there are thermocouples which is going to measure the temperature of the air. So some thermocouples will be inserted inside the pipe and some thermocouples will be on top of the surface of the pipe. So basically what is that you will be getting? You will be getting the average surface temperature and then you will be getting the average temperature of the fluid. So that is what is required. So basically what is the principle on which we will be calculating is Q is equal to HA into delta T, correct? So basically what is H? H is equal to Q divided by A into delta T. So which is equal to Q is the heat that you supplied. So electrical means it is V into I, that is voltage into current, divided by A. Area here you should be very careful. It is not a cross sectional area. It is the area seen by the flow, that is area, surface area. Sorry. Into the average temperature of the surface minus average temperature of the fluid. Are you able to understand, guys? Average air temperature. So this is what you will be calculating it, and then finally you will be calculating H experimental. So this is what the H experimental you will be calculating. You are going to get dash watt per meter square degree centigrade or Kelvin. Now similarly, how do you calculate the H experimental? As I told you, there is a orifice meter which I will be explaining you in the video. There is a orifice meter through which you will be calculating the head, and by using the correlation, by using the relation QA equal to CD into A1 into A2 into square root of 2 times G into HA divided by square root of A1 square minus A2 square. So this is what you will be using the relationship in order to calculate the discharge that is happening out of the correlation. Based on that, you can calculate the velocity of the air, correct? So how do we calculate the velocity of the air? So velocity of the air is nothing but V air is equal to the discharge divided by A2. That means whatever the cross-sectional area from which the air is coming out, that is A2. Okay. Next thing is you can calculate the Reynolds number. So since it's an internal flow, you have to calculate using UD by nu. So you can easily calculate it. So velocity of the air. Then you have to calculate the Prandtl number, which is nothing but equal to mu into Cp divided by K, which is already available in your data handbook. And based on the judgment, that is based on the Reynolds number value, if it is exceeding more than 2300, then it is considered as laminar flow. Sorry, it is considered as turbulent flow. Then you have to use the correlation Nu equal to 0.023 Re to the power of 0.8, as I told you in the theory part, to the power of n accordingly. Then theoretically, how do you calculate? You know Nu equal to Hd by K, and therefore you will be getting H theoretical value. Are you able to understand, guys? So this is how you will be calculating the H theoretical value is equal to dash watt per meter square Kelvin. So this is how you will be doing it. Now I will be giving you what are all the observations that you need to, you are supposed to calculate before actually going for the calculation. Okay, let me just give you that. The observations. Length of the pipe, first one. Length of the pipe equal to L, which is equal to 50 centimeter. And second one, inside diameter of the pipe. Inside dia of the pipe is equal to, that is D, which is equal to 4.3 centimeter. Then third one, coefficient of discharge. So I'll directly write it here. Your CD is equal to 0.69. Already you have done this experiment in your fluid mechanics lab with the help of your orifice meter. So you will be aware of that. And diameter of the orifice. Diameter of the orifice. So that is equal to 3 mm. So it will be the coming out. That means the air which will be passing through there is a decrease in the cross sectional area sudden. So that is 3 mm. So then fifth one. So you have to calculate what is the voltage dash volts and what is the amps current. So it is for every experiment you should be doing it. Now I will be now what is that the tabular column that I will be shown. So this is what observation you need to go for it. So basically I'll try to write the, please try to take it out accordingly. You have a serial number. This is what the tabular column that you need to go there. With the tabular column you should be doing this experiment. You have a power here. You need to calculate what is that. So V and I and finally Q. So it is watts. So this is volts and this is amps. Correct apa? Next you have two readings here. So that is I'll write it here, temperature readings. Temperature readings. So basically temperature readings, and then I'll put this thing here. Then finally what is that we want? We want what is called as TS minus T fluid. So this temperature readings, let me just try to write it here. So it varies from say T1, T2, T3, T4. So already the manual has been also updated in your in your Google Classroom. You can just try to refer that also apart from this lecture. So T4 till T7 is your surface temperature. Then finally you have to calculate the average, whatever it is. Then finally the air temperature, that is from T8 to T11. T8 to T11. Finally calculate T air or T fluid, whatever it is. So basically you have to calculate the average of T surface and T fluid. Are you able to understand, guys? So finally find out the difference of T surface versus T fluid temperature. You can refer the tabular column in the manual which has been updated there. So basically you can keep it in Kelvin or whatever it is. So accordingly, whatever the calculation I showed, you can try to do it. Okay. You will be able to find out the value of H experimental and H theoretical. So see that both your H experimental and H theoretical should be on par with each other, but there will be certain errors because of experimentation. So see that you do less error when you are calculating the experimental experimentation. Now the video will be, we will now try to understand the actual experimental setup. Okay, thank you. Good morning, students. Now we have discussed enough theory about the basics of convection heat transfer. Now we will get into the actual experimentation of forced convection heat transfer. The aim of the experiment here is to calculate the heat transfer coefficient for a forced convection. Now what do you mean by a forced convection? Forced convection heat transfer is that you instigate the flow with the help of an external agency. That means to say you have a hot plate or a hot tube. So in this case you can see there is a hot tube which is placed over this. Top of the tube, we have understood with the sketch. On the top of the tube, the heater wire is being mounted on top of the tube, and that heater wire is being heated, because of which the tube will be heated, and inside the tube the air will be made to flow. Now if you could just see here, there is a pump which is there below, and that pump is connected with the throttle valve. You can control the flow rate of the air. Now you can maintain there are two ways by which you can do the experiment. You can keep on varying the flow rate so that the velocity that is flowing inside the tube will be varying. So for every velocity you can monitor the variation of temperature of the wall as well as the air, and you can plot the graph. Now the other way of doing the experiment is that you keep on changing the wattage. Okay, keep on changing the values of the volts. That means finally the Q will be varying. You will be varying the heat input, and for every heat input you will be varying the temperature. We will understand how to do it. Okay. Now you just see here there is a pump. Can you please focus on this? So there is a pump which is operating now. There is a throttle valve, and this is connected to the tube. Now if you just see here, there is a heater which we have already put the apparatus in working condition. So this is being heated here completely. Inside which you can see this pipe is going inside. That means to say air is flowing inside the hot pipe. Inside the hot pipe air will be flowing. And also you can see there are these yellow thermocouples, yellow wires. These are the thermocouple wires. Now in case of finding out the heat transfer coefficient, especially for internal flows, we want the temperature of the surface and also temperature of the air, so that it is finally what it is, Q is equal to HA delta T, correct? So H equal to what? Q divided by A into delta T. So what is the area that you need to consider in heat transfer coefficient in the forced convection? Always in convection heat transfer, it is the area seen by the flow. That means to say the surface area need to be considered. So you can very easily calculate the surface area. You know the diameter, you know the length of the pipe. So pi into D into L is going to give you the surface area of the pipe. Now as the air flows through the hot tube, air gets heated up, correct? Now there are thermocouples here. There are totally 12 thermocouples. Now up to 7 thermocouples have been attached on the surface of the pipe. So that if you average those 7 readings, you are going to get the average temperature of the valve. Now from T8 to T12 is what the temperature of the air. Now T11, up to T8 to T11 is the temperature of the air which will be flowing inside the pipe. Now if you try to average those readings, you are going to get the average temperature of the air. Now if you can make the difference of average temperature of the surface and average temperature of the air, you are going to get the delta T. Now if you can just see here, I will just explain you how to increase the voltage. Now you can see here, now the voltage is showing 80, current is 2.10 amps. So 82 volts and 2.10 amps. So if you just try to multiply it, you are going to get the capital Q. That is the Q input. Now you can keep on varying. After every 15 minutes you should keep on varying. Like that you need to take 4 readings. That means 15 into 4, 60. Almost 1 hour you need to do the experiment. So every 15 hours, so we will be giving you the readings. It is your job, please you have to fill the other values. Now I'll just show you how to do it. So you will be setting the voltage and the current. Now you can just see here, there is this data acquisition system which will be you can see that is monitoring here. Now it is T1, 73 degrees centigrade. Now like that, if I keep on changing it, T2, T3, T4, T5, T6, T7. So these are the respective temperatures of the surface of the pipe. So you have to note down that, the tabular column will be shown in the video. Next, similarly, T8, T9, T10, T11, that is the respective temperature of the air. Now you can average it, as I told you, average of the temperature of the wall and average of the temperature of the air. So like that, you can, T12 is the ambient temperature. Now you can observe there is one more device here. It's U-tube manometer which is fixed. Why basically we are using this is to calculate the velocity of the air. Now how do we calculate the velocity of the air? You can see there is a orifice meter, a kind of orifice meter. The diameter, whatever that is there, suddenly there is a decrease in the diameter, so which is acting like a orifice meter. So you can see there is 2 pipes which is fixed, which by measuring the height of the water column here, you can find out the head. That means head of that is something like a pressure difference. So with the help of this, you can use the expression for flow rate, that is Q is equal to CD into that expression that is being that will be shown to you in the video. So using that expression, you can find out the value of the Q, that is the discharge, and with the help of the discharge, you can find out the velocity of the air. So all those the procedure will be shown to you, okay, after this video. So this is how we will be doing the experiment. This is all the experimental setup is. Now the readings will be given to you. And the one procedure will be shown how to calculate the heat transfer coefficient. So finally, as the theory being explained, in forced convection, your Nusselt number is a function of Reynolds number and Prandtl number. So finally, what is that you need to do? You need to first find out whether the flow is laminar or turbulent. Based on that, you need to select the right correlation. From that correlation, you can calculate the Nusselt number. From the Nusselt number, you can calculate Nu is equal to Hd by K. So if you calculate Nu, you can directly calculate H. So that is how theoretically you can find out. Experimentally, you know what is the Q input you are giving. You know the average temperature difference of the pipe and also the air. So Q is equal to HA delta T. So H is equal to Q divided by area into delta T. So by which you can calculate the experimental H. So what is your job? The experimental H and the theoretical H should be in close form with each other. It should not be varying much. So this is what your job to do it. So I hope the experimental procedure or the experimental setup is clear to you. Now we will see how to do the calculation. Hello students, so welcome back to this video on finding out the heat transfer coefficient for a forced convection inside a pipe. So this is what the specimen calculation that you should follow after the experiment that has been carried out. So like that you are supposed to find it out for all the other values. Okay, so the thing is, first you have to find it out. Q equal to V into I equal to dash watts, and AS, that is the surface area, pi di into L. So first thing is experimental heat transfer coefficient. How to find it out? That is what I am explaining now. Just have a look at it. Then average temperature of the surface. By experimentation you will be able to get the average temperature of the surface, and then average temperature of the air. So H experimental equal to what? Q divided by surface area times Ts minus Ta. So by which you can very easily find out what is the H experimental value of the air, okay, for the forced convection. Next is theoretical heat transfer coefficient. So basically cross sectional area of the pipe, that is A1. So we will be notifying it as A1. So pi d square by 4, and similarly for the orifice, A2 is pi d naught square by 4 dash meter square. So head of the air through the orifice, through the U-tube manometer column, you will be able to get this, find out that. So you can use that and try to calculate the discharge of the air. Q equal to QA equal to CD times A1 A2 square root of this. You can see the formula. And basically velocity of the air is equal to what? Discharge divided by the exit area. Then you can calculate the Reynolds number, then Prandtl number. Then you can put into the equation Nu equal to 0.023 times R e to the power of 0.8 Prandtl number to the power of N. Then theoretically you can calculate Nu times K divided by D. So like this you have to do it for all the readings. Are you able to understand? You have to do it for all the readings. Thank you.